episode 2 of season 2 of the Cyber People podcast, and we are delighted to welcome Chris Ong. Now, Chris, I could introduce you, but I would love it if you would express in your own words who you are and what you do.
Sure. And again, thank you for having me on your podcast and for accommodating my schedule. I did have to put the kids to bed before joining. Otherwise, you'd have a lot of background noise, which is somewhat entertaining, but also is quite distracting for listeners. So by day, I'm a mild-mannered identity and access management domain SME. By night, I still am a mild-mannered identity and access management domain SME, but normally sleeping or playing video games. I'm a proud dad to 2 young kids. My wife is still married to me somehow. She my biggest supporter and enabler in life. From a professional perspective, I've primarily worked in the identity and access management space for my entire career, which is now spanning its 18th year. Which is when did I get old? My goodness, I used to have all this hair and energy and things, and now I find myself going to bed 10:30 and knackered the next morning. My career has primarily centered around identity and access management, which is the domain that is responsible for managing user lifecycle, access, how people gain access, the processes, the roles, the frameworks around how you go about securing, how staff and customers get access to your IT systems and your applications.
Okay. And why do you do that? And how did you end up doing that?
Why do I do it? Actually, I might answer the second question first. So how did I get into it? I kind of like everything else. I kind of stumbled into it. So straight out of university, I did a computer engineering degree, and I thought that IT was all about, Java programming, C, C++, shell scripting, Unix, database networks. Landed my first role as a Java developer at this startup consultancy that specialized in this thing called identity and access management. And, we deployed solutions for large organizations, and, it was to automate, user creations back in the day, or single sign-on, so you wouldn't have to remember all these passwords. And it was a nifty little IT thing back in the day. But as the years wore on, what's happened is it's transformed into, I guess, a central component of broader cybersecurity. So my career has kind of progressed from that point where I worked on a bunch of projects, got to work at different client sites, got to expand my my natural curiosity sort of took me to learning pick up different skills. I learned from very good mentors. And before you know it, people are listening to me for advice around, well, what's best practice and how should we do this? And, it becomes less of a technical challenge and more of a business challenge and a risk management challenge. Because these days, everything's online, everything is serviced through the web, everything is, it's all about the data privacy, and protecting your organization from unauthorized access. That comes with a reputational hit as well as other punishments and penalties. So there's a lot more online these days in this space than when I first started out, where it was just, hey, let's just synchronize some accounts. And why do I do it? I've grown to love it. You spend, I guess I'm a walking example of the 10,000 hour rule. You spend enough time doing it, you kind of get less terrible at it. And I really do enjoy being able to help make things safer and easier for my colleagues and my wider team, and ultimately like the customer base that our organizations serve.
Okay, so is it? I mean, one of the things that I've observed is in the market in Australia, probably globally, because we're not that unique. identity access management or just identity expertise is one of the most in-demand skill sets within cybersecurity, as far as I can see. Is it true that one of the largest vulnerabilities that is exploited to create a lot of the cyber attacks that we hear about through the media is a user identity, that someone gets hold of some kind of an identity that's been poorly administered or whatever? There's all of these organizations that have a huge number of user IDs that still exist, but the people have left, they've moved on. So there are all these accounts that still exist, and a lot of the vulnerabilities that are exploited are to do with the poor housekeeping around identity access management. Is that correct?
Yeah. So poor. It's the stories I could tell you, but I have to protect the innocent. But look, ultimately, your firewalls, your DLP mechanisms, your routing tables and rules, they don't count for squat unless you have users, right? Like if you have an empty population, what's there to compromise? It's just a bunch of software doing things. The way that organizations get not even breached, just you have an accidental P1 because you pulled out a plug or something, is that you haven't managed your user accounts well, or and then somehow they get disabled or password changed or something along those lines. So to your earlier point, it is a rare skill set in the market, and it's because it's a combination of technical process, risk management, and just general cybersecurity know-how. You need a blend of skill sets and knowledge to really to really get into this space at that level. You also need to be kind of crazy to be doing this for this long. I found it's this isn't a place to be if you want some sexy dashboard or fancy metrics and numbers. Go to Salesforce for that or something, right? But if you want, we're a bit like a referee. If we do our job well, you shouldn't be aware of us. But if we do it badly, bam, we make the news.
Right.
500 million records breached or leaked online or something ridiculous like that.
It's like being a goalkeeper.
Pretty much, yeah. So, DLP fails or some firewall rule doesn't fire, then bam, it's on us, right? Or we at least get the first blame, but then action replay shows the midfielder was fast asleep tying his shoelaces.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Who is the midfielder in cybersecurity?
Look, I think we all are. We take turns. I think it's some days it's us, some days it's the network guys, some days it's the DPs. No, it's all it's all a good mix there. And one of the things that a lot of folks fail to appreciate is this is a very new industry. It's the role didn't exist 20 years ago, so they're still working out, and it changes so rapidly. So they're still working out the attack vectors, and it constantly shifts as well. So some organizations are still trying to patch their 2008 servers, and here we are trying to fend off nation states by securing, our human, our non-human, our privileged accounts, and have it all SSO'd and have MFA in place at the same time. There's a lot of holes to poke in there. It's conceptually very easy to explain to you and I, or to my partner. Very easy to get wrong as well.
Is the secret of a effective cybersecurity strategy mostly found in the way in which you communicate it to the rest of the organization? I've heard a lot of people say to me, a cybersecurity role these days is largely about communication and probably a little bit less about the technology. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. The technology at the end of the day either works or it doesn't, right? So, it either you press a button, you get this response, or you don't. The communication aspect is very underrated, just because it's a specialized area that not everyone appreciates. So to be able to explain, why your service desk guys need to care, why your bank tellers need to care, why your CEO needs to care. You need to be able to relate to what's keeping them up at night. Is it the fact that they need to serve their customers quickly and with good customer service, or are they dealing with regulatory pressures, or managing managing a release of a product that may influence sales and what have you? So being able to explain to them, look, we're not trying to get in your way. We're trying to help you. We're trying to help you, move quickly but not recklessly. Because if you go ahead and do your own lone wolf sort of thing, then that deviates from best practices or standards, and you open yourself up to unknowingly to potential breaches, to misconfigurations, attacks, opportunistic type of scenarios there.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think one of the issues, Chris, is that in a lot of companies, cyber is seen as a technology thing. It sort of sits within IT, and I suppose a lot of people think of technology as like something that just sort of facilitates what they do anyway. So it's not the be all and end all, but it's like it's the tail, not the dog. Do you think that if cybersecurity was sort of seen more as an operational risk area or a business area rather than being under technology, that would improve its branding or brand recognition within the broader organization? Do you know what I mean? Like, I remember when I'm a bit long in the tooth, and I've been doing this job for a long time. And when I first got into my area, cyber security was called information security, and there were a few like paranoid dudes who sat at the back of the IT department, and that's it. And now it's completely changed. They're like the rock stars. They're always on the in the news, and hugely in demand, and rates and salaries are going through the roof, and so there's all this federal funding behind it. So there's been a huge shift in public awareness and in media coverage. And I just wonder if the central message of cybersecurity within an organization could be improved if cybersecurity were not just seen as a adjunct to IT, but were seen as a sort of, business critical or operational risk area. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely. It was born out of information technology departments, but the problem itself is connecting it to how it serves the business. And so and some organizations, govern this a lot better than others. They're on a scale of maturity, I suppose. The ones that are further advanced are the ones that understand it, that it is a way of managing risk in your business. And so, at the end of the day, an executive isn't going to spend money just because they like a piece of tech. They're going to spend money for one of two reasons: to either help the organization make more money or become more profitable, or to increase resilience, i.e., to meet compliance, or to increase resilience against something going wrong. So that's where cybersecurity comes into play, where we're helping, enable digital technologies and making that available to everybody, left, right, and center. But at the same time, so the usability side of things. But at the same time, we also have to, just be aware of and manage those risks that come with that. So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. With great convenience comes great, risks.
Yes.
And so organizations that respect that, they get it, they see it, and it drives a lot of conversations. The ones that don't tend to ask the question, well, it's faster if we do it this way, or it's going to make things harder, or what have you. And so I get involved in a lot of conversations around, what's the point of it, or like, what's the benefit behind it? It's like, well, the benefit is we don't get breached and don't get sold down in the share market for a reputation hit, right? There's a number of examples that you can just recall in the past couple of years, where organizations got hit and made the news and all that fun stuff, and it ultimately came down to they the avenue through which an attacker got in was by a human.
Absolutely, absolutely, and very often months and months and months before any kind of event is recorded or the organization is aware of it. You know, the old adage of there's two kinds of organizations: those who've been hacked and those who don't know they've been hacked. Exactly. Probably a little bit like COVID. We've all either had COVID or we don't know that we've had it.
No, and it seems like the next rounds are doing the rounds again, and so we're like, oh, okay, family deals back on board, folks. So
exactly,
wait and see.
We just got to make friends with it. Right. Chris, I know that two of the things you wanted to talk about today are the lessons you would tell your 21-year-old self.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if your 21-year-old self would listen to your 26-year-old self, but let's find out. And the
26 is very kind. Thank you. The skincare routines are paying for itself, really.
Absolutely. Oil of Ulay, ladies and gentlemen, oil of Ulay.
That's right.
And going to bed at 10:30, as you said earlier. And then the second topic that you really wanted to cover off was leadership styles, because I know that one of the really important things for you is the sort of human side of what you do, which I think probably is quite often forgotten, you know, in big business. I can totally understand that, even in small business. So what would you tell the 21-year-old Chris Ong?
So, you know, it's... as a 21-year-old, I just finished university and looking for my first gig out of university. And, you know, there's a level, you sort of have in your head that, like, you're going to, that your career is going to pan out a certain way, or like it's going to go a certain trajectory. And these are things I sort of like learned along the way. And to your earlier point, the answer is definitely no. I wouldn't have listened to myself. It's a bit like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Like future versions of themselves came back and say, "Hey, don't forget to wind back your time because it's San Dimas time." And of course they don't forget because they're high on crack half the time. But but you know, if I had a playbook that I would sort of write and give to myself, one, I'd list all the shares I should have bought back in like 2004. Made an absolute killing. But from a professional perspective, look, it comes down to a couple of things. One is, don't be afraid to fail. And it's kind of cliche, but the reason why that's important is because how do you learn if everything goes well? Like the best stories that I have to tell my team and my friends and family are the ones where like shit just fell apart, and like you'd be like, this is the shittiest project ever, or just everything's gone wrong. I'm dealing with these bunch of clowns, but that's where you learn the most because you get to see, okay, this is what not to do, and these are lessons learned, and it really triggers that part of your brain that kind of goes, we need to not do this again. And it helps you to appreciate the smooth running projects as well. Or the really positive roles that you've had. Thankfully, I've had only very good managers and leadership teams, so I've yet to encounter like the proverbial bad manager or what have you. They've always been supportive, but don't be afraid to fail. And because the thing is, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You will stumble at some point. You'd be in a level of Prince Andrew denial if you didn't think you knew fast. Oh no, I'd have a condition where I don't touch production at all. So it couldn't have been me that deleted all those tables. No, you're gonna fail, right? So learn from it, suck it up, learn from it, let it sting, but don't make that same mistake again.
Yes.
Yeah. So learn to fail.
Are there any, when you tell this story, when you share this nugget of wisdom, Chris, are there any specific examples where, the proverbial hit the fan, any sort of serious icebergs that ruptured your hull at one point or another that you'd like to kind of give us a few details on, or is it all sort of top secret and confidential or too traumatic?
It's all kind of blurred
Yeah.
in my memory, but I guess it's helped shape the person that I am. So two traits come out of that. One is it takes a lot of bad news to shake me. So I've, a production down. Okay, tell me what the details are. Oh, we've lost this. Okay, well, when did you last see it? It's
Yeah.
you even if inside my head I'm kind of going, oh shit. It doesn't convey confidence or assurance if you project that outwardly. So you learn to develop a good poker face. Yeah, look, in terms of stories, there's I think the main stories is around collective failings. Like you're on a project that's just, I don't know. There's bad vibes or bad juju flying around. So naturally, your team it's an us versus them sort of thing, and everything's a passive aggressive sort of vibe to it, and it's just hard to get anything done. There's projects that I've been on a bit like that. There's been projects where the project leads were, I wouldn't say asleep at the wheel, but they probably weren't the best folks to be leading that, or maybe they just checked out, and the outcomes kind of take care of themselves when you have leaders that check out, and as much as you can try to prod and poke and cajole and will the outcomes. You just have to acknowledge, look, we just have to there's only certain amount of things that we can influence, and there's no point stressing out about things beyond that.
How did you?
Probably.
Sorry, no, please. I interrupted. It's a terrible habit of mine. I just get too excited and want to ask loads of questions.
Yeah, but the other reflection is, and I spent the first 15 years of my professional career as working in a consultancy. So we get engaged by clients to help deliver projects and help them out. The reflection on that is, look, if they had their shit together, they wouldn't need us. They wouldn't need to pay our organizations a lot of money to wheel in specialist skills and experiences that we brought. If all their teams worked harmoniously together, they wouldn't need us to help facilitate those workshops to flesh out those business rules that reside in this old timer's head that no one else knows the arcane rules for. I did some work at a telco about a decade ago now, where a lot of their key business functionality resided in this horrendous orgy of database tables that no one understood except for maybe one or two individuals. And if you need to make a simple change, like, hey, maybe we should update the logo, that's a $30,000 change request. It was that sort of system. It may still be there, it may not. Who knows? But
how did you? How long did it take as the 21-year-old Chris Ong to get to the stage where you could just be chilled and calm and not panic? Even though you might have been totally, inside.
I don't think you ever get there, but you get better at it. So look, there could be something that I hear tomorrow that makes you kind of go, oh shit, it's on. But it comes in phases, and I guess it comes in phases based off, I guess, the experiences that you've had. So the first few years of my career, I was a project team member, so a developer or tester or architect or BA. 5 or 6 years in, I started leading teams as a tech lead and a project lead. And I think once you start managing people, you get better at providing that sort of level of assurance and setting that message and just thinking about other people apart from yourself and what you're doing for the day and what you need to get done for the week. So you have to run on dual modes there. And it's a skill that is for a lot of folks with tech background, it's not the easiest or most natural skill to master because social interaction. What the hell is that? So to be able to talk tech, domain, SME, type stuff, as well as manage people, as well as be able to communicate with a varied set of stakeholders. it's a skill that a 21-year-old would not possess. So that's probably the other part of it, of the learnings, which is you got to find your own style. So it only hit me a few years back where my boss at the time, I was stressing out about this presentation that I had to give, at the end of an engagement where my team had done all this awesome work, security controls, yada, 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 review of the identity platforms, this, that, and the other, very technical, heavily technical engagement. And I had to come up to speed in like a day while I was working on a few other projects at the same time. And trying to, come up with the talking points, and I'm sitting there panicking, shitting my pants, absolutely panicking. And my boss just pulls me aside and goes, look, just tell the story the way you feel most comfortable. If you try to mimic me or Dave or like John, you're going to fail because you're not us, right? Tell it the way that you tell it. So, I sort of, that if nothing else, it just helped calm me down. And I know I have a certain style of speaking. It can be a bit stuttery or a bit excited or a bit, energetic or dull at times, depending on how you perceive my voice. But, it helps me to sort of at least focus on, okay, well, what are the key things I talk to them. And it just helped me to then, get into that zone to go, okay, well, what is it that these guys need to understand? Let's have that conversation, facilitate the thoughts as we step through them. Don't just read off a PowerPoint slide. Don't just talk at them about, here are the things that we've done. We've done all these things. Oh, look, all the things we've done. Point out some high level findings. Pause, give them the opportunity to reflect and provide feedback or ask questions, and then steer the conversation from there. Kind of like half organized, half wing it, which is kind of like life in general. Like your day kind of should start out like this, but next thing I know, I'm walking to work in sandals. It's have to make do sometimes.
Absolutely. Good enough is good enough. Perfection is sometimes the enemy of the good, I think. And, we can be way too attached to this and put ourselves under enormous pressure.
I always tell my teams that if you're waiting for perfection, you'll be waiting a long time, like in all places, any place I've ever worked at. So whatever product or output you've produced to date, I'm certain, provided you run it past a spell checker, that it is the best version of that this organization produced, whether it's a policy or a doc, design doc, or or user guide or whatever. You got to start somewhere, and if there's terrible feedback, we use that feedback and we improve on it.
Listening to you talk, Chris, I feel a lot more relaxed, and I feel like I'm going to be a lot easier on myself moving forward. And I'm sure the listeners are feeling the same. It's true. We do definitely beat ourselves up way too much. We're our own worst enemies. We criticize ourselves. We put all sorts of limitations on ourselves. Run your own race is a very positive message. And I always say that to the candidates that I'm working with who are going through interview processes and so forth. Just do you, because we can't consistently do who we're not. So even if you pretend to be someone else and you get the job, it's not going to last, So.
Yeah, and even going back to the failure point, be prepared to fail. Not only outright failure, but just say things like rejection. If you go for a job interview, you're not suited for all roles in all organizations. Some places want a more technical version. Some places may want someone who's more got a particular skill set that you don't happen to fit, or another candidate had a better fit. Maybe if you got the job, you would have done well, but this other candidate seem to tick more of the boxes. It's less about your shortcomings and more about just understanding where other factors that came into play, and just learning from what that means to make yourself better next time around.
Absolutely. And I liked what you said about taking on massive responsibility early on in your career, becoming a team leader, taking on the responsibility of other people, and how that helped you develop faster. You were able to acquire that sang-froid, as they say in France, the ability to be cool, calm, and collected like a cucumber under intense pressure, even if you don't feel that way inside. Jordan Peterson often talks about taking on massive responsibility in order to have a meaningful life. And that sounds like pretty much what you just said.
Yeah, and just listening to this conversation now, your listeners may get a sense that I'm this composed and well put together individual. And look, I'd love to assure them that I'm not. Like things go wrong all the time, and I sometimes need to go and to just kind of go, oh, God damn it, this didn't go my way, what have you. So, it's an ongoing sort of life lesson. One of the reasons I enjoy identity so much is because 18 years in, I'm still learning stuff. I'm like, really? Okay. We're trying to solve the same problem, but there's different ways as technology matures to, and also how as businesses evolve to be more digitally to adopt digital transformation to operate and do things. So the problem keeps changing, the solution needs to change as well, and our response to that needs to change too. It's always learning.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that's when we're happiest as humans, when we're constantly growing. Chris, we don't have a lot of time left. I would just like to ask, were there any other lessons that you would tell your 21-year-old self? And if not, would you like to give us some insights into leadership styles?
Yeah, so this probably blends both into the lessons I'll tell my younger self as well as leadership, but prioritize family. It's another cliche lesson, but it's one that has struck me a number of times. And there's two stories I'd like to share there. One was I was a mentor to a younger girl back in the day, and she went on maternity leave. She came back. I caught up with her. I'm like, hey, how's it going? How's it been? I'd actually got word, quite word prior that she'd lost a baby early on after childbirth. So I was mentally prepared. But just when I had that first sit down with her at a coffee shop, I sort of just had to ask. I knew it was coming, but you still just have to ask the question, "How's it going?" And just be as sensitive as you can. And that, I was a first-time dad of a 10-month-old at the time. And, just that conversation, I couldn't have given a fuck about work. Like you just kind of go, "This is, we just hammers at home for you, right?" So there's. And I actually messaged that person last week to see how they're going, and they're thriving these days in a new environment. They've expanded their family since we last spoke, and just doing really well. So I couldn't be happier for that person. The other part of it is the CEO of the consulting firm that I work for. He expanded the market cap for that organization by $70 billion. Remarkable businessman, just helped to motivate so many people. He suffered some health ailments, had to take some time off, came back, and then he retired a couple of years back. And in 3 weeks, he was dead. And so I'm like that, and like I've never met the guy, and like none of my peers have met the guy, but like just the amount of grief and outpouring that took place. It's not how the script is meant to run. Like this guy worked so hard, did so many great things. And he didn't get to enjoy the benefits of that. So, again, you just put to work and family and your broader life into perspective there. You're doing it for a reason. Know what that reason is, and then, work to it. But also, when you're interacting with people, treat them as humans first and foremost. You may disagree with them, and that's okay. I had a disagreement with like one of the team leads this morning. That's fine. We're allowed to do that. We kept it respectful, and I respect him for having such strong views as much as he would, hopefully, as much as he would with me for politely putting my views forward. We hashed that a way forward. Bang! I can turn around to my team tomorrow and say, "Hey, need you guys to help me get this done."
Exactly. Absolutely. And with that amazing nugget of wisdom, because I totally agree. We seem to be in a time where being disagreed with or being offended is suddenly a bad thing. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it can be character building and very thought provoking. Chris Ong, I'm really sorry to have to bring it to a close. I could talk to you all night. I'm so grateful that you joined us this evening. And I'd love to hear more. And I hope you come back very, very soon. Thank you so much for your time.
All right. Thank you for having me. We'll have a great night.
You too, mate. All the best.